Ladies and gentlemen, we've left the best to last, and welcome to Paradigm Shifts. We're looking to the future, but we're also going to be doing a quick gallop to the past so that we can see our future. But we're only going back 3,000 years, so we shouldn't be too long. Just to demonstrate that paradigm shifts happen quickly, we've had one ourselves on this panel this afternoon, and you'll notice that 5 has gone to 3. But this is the quality end of the debate between Matt Sky and Connor. So we're going to have some interesting talks. We're going to have a bit of time for some debate, and I think you'll find some really interesting questions you can ask. I'm specifically looking at Sky when I say that. People have been talking far too much about plant protein, I think. Because there's another protein flying your way anytime soon that will challenge some of the things that we do. But first of all, to start this off, when I was thinking about this subject, I thought about one of my favourite food writers, the famous MFK Fisher, who said, "First we eat, then we do everything else." And that's pretty important, and it was pretty important 3,000 years ago. The great dynasties of the world and the great empires of the world recognized how important that was. Because if we don't have food, we don't think about anything else. If we can't feed ourselves, and more importantly, if we can't feed our families and our loved ones, nothing else matters. And if you recall Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs, that's how he talked about it. So if you remember the 5, he talked about the immediate needs of food and water. Then he would talk about safety and security. Then he would talk about belonging and family, esteem and prestige, and then finally creative. Now there's another fun fact about food, because I can't think of a single other thing that fits into all 5 of Maslow's need states. And when we talk today about the future and the shifts and the change, I want the guys and we can have a bit of a debate about how some of their products fit into those things, some of our fears, some of our hopes. And as I said, with the civilizations, they knew that. They knew they had to get people off subsistence farming, because you can't have an army, you can't invade another country, and you can't think about science unless you do that. So in the Han Dynasty, they spent a lot of time on how to get agriculture faster and speedier. There was a small empire, I think it was called the British Empire. They had a slightly different philosophy. They sent their ships out to countries far, far away and landed their ships. I think they landed one somewhere in 1788 that was about somewhere near Botany Bay. And they came, and I think we know the story of food and how they changed food globally, and things like the East India Trading Company. Something else to remember about food is what happens when it doesn't work. So when the food supply stops, revolutions happen. And if you think about, I struggle to think of a revolution that didn't happen because there was no food. If we think about that when we have this conversation, and then let's come back to the future and what's happening. Today, this will come as a shock to you all, but I'm actually not a tea innovator, which is why I have 25 years of experience in food retail. And I've never seen such change, and I've never seen change at this sort of speed. And that means you have to be incredibly reactive. And there are lots of things causing that. To quote the UN, food is the cause, the culprit, and the solution to climate change. If you think about social media and the way we communicate and the speed at which we communicate, and that's scaring the mega brands who have held the space in food retail since the mid-20th century. They can't move fast enough. They're having to get the small guys to innovate because they can't change. And they have another problem, and it's called millennials, because millennials don't like them. They don't trust them, and they can talk to all of their people about how they don't trust them. And if they think millennials are a problem, wait till the Gen Zers get here. So there's a change in how people are thinking. And if you think about if any of you listened to John Kerry on Tuesday, you talked about a generation that are getting angry about a lack of change at a fast enough pace. And that probably the last time that happened was in the 1960s, and the youth of the 1960s made quite a lot of change at quite a lot of pace, and they didn't have the internet. So that makes it interesting. And then technology is allowing people to get to markets in a way that didn't happen in the 20th century. So in the 20th century, supermarkets held the space, but suddenly for small producers, there are different ways to get to market. So that is going to be part of our debate, and what happens when change happens, and what does our future look like. So Matt Boyce is going to talk to you now about a little bit about why convenience is important, but he's also going to talk a little bit about health and why that security is important. Matt.
Thank you, Hilary. So my name's Matt Boyce. I'm the founder of the Connection Project. We're a locally sort of founded social enterprise that has three main sections. We deal in food for life, learning for life, and connection for life. And our main philosophy falls over one massive attack on today's society. So we've talked heavily over the last 3 days, and I've had some fantastic speakers talk about global warming and how much danger we are under as a globe. But there's another silent killer that's affecting us just at a fast rate, and if we don't deal with that, then global warming might not even be an issue. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is suicide. And in 2017, we had nearly 95,000 Australians attempt to take their own life, which is just a staggering figure. We had 3,128 of those were actually successful. So that's the amount of Australians that took their life in 2017. As I stand here, or sit here, as the panel has changed today, we have 8 Australians a day taking their own life. That's 8 fathers who won't walk their daughter down the aisle. It's 8 brothers who won't be able to teach their nephew how to kick the footy. And the hardest one for me to comprehend is that 8 young girls that now won't graduate school. And as I spoke earlier, the Connection Project, we have our 3 channels, and they all have an underlying purpose around food, but not just food on the plate. And food is obviously an experience which we're going to talk about heavily today. But the experience of sharing a meal with someone, so your family, a co-worker, and it's not just sharing the meal and sitting down with someone, it's about the actual preparation. So I have a business that runs under this Connection Project called Your Prep, and what we do is we supply 500-gram individually packed cooked ingredients. So that's your beef minces, chickens, vegetables of the likes, and we're trying to make that accessible to Australian families so the connection is a lot easier. So the hard work's done, we've sourced the material, all they're left to do now is to prepare it together as a family and then sit down and enjoy it. Unfortunately, we are the most digitally connected we have ever been, yet we've become so disconnected as a human race. You only have to walk through your local restaurant strip at 8 p.m. at night and see hundreds of date nights interrupted by mobile phones, or a walk along the river up in Brisbane and all you see is couples walking whilst staring into their mobile phones. So technology has found a way to creep its way into our most sacred times. And there's no surprise, as the Australian family dinner has demised, that suicide rates have risen with that. So we play heavily in that space. We know we have lost that human connection, but it's not gone forever. We can get it back. So food for life is our main principle, and we want to bring people together over that option. We also run a charity under that wing, so we're not just educating parents around how important this is. We go into the schools and we talk to the kids and educate them around the massive benefits over connecting over a meal. So that's your lunchtime, dinner time with the family and all the likes. And then the biggest thing for us is bringing communities together. So Connection for Life is our third and last principle, and they all have that underlying thing of food. And our Connection for Life principle is that we're bringing communities together. We're taking it back to the streets. As when I was a kid, we used to shut down our cul-de-sac and have big fold-out tables in the streets, and we'd bring all the families out and each family would bring a dish out, and there's no surprise that suicide rates were a lot lower back then, and they're rising heavily today as we speak. We're at 8.6 a day, and if we don't do something about it, we're going to be at 9 next year, and then 9.2, and then increasingly higher. So while global warming is an incredible threat on our society, this is probably almost up there. So we want to work heavily. I'm personally involved with a great accelerator run by Mars, and they had a campaign and a research project in 2015 where they went into family homes and saw what dinner time meant to them, and they found in a week 15% of families are having 2 or fewer family dinners together, and that was in 2015, so chances are that's probably higher today. So that's where we sit, guys. We believe food is no longer just about fueling our bodies. It's not about the nutritional label you read on the back of the product. It's about an experience, and it's about sharing a meal with one another. And I encourage you guys to take that principle on board and go back to sharing meals with each other.
Maz wondered about what Mazza said about why family and love and belonging is important, and what we get taught as a child around a family table stays with us, and that reminds us very much of the impact of what happens if we don't do that. What our next speaker is going to remind us of is something else that can happen to us as a child as well. What we get given as food as a child stays in our mind. So marketeers will tell you if you can remind someone of their childhood with a product, the sales of your product will go up. So that, for Sky specifically, presents a little bit of a challenging position because her product, of course, wasn't, in most Western nations at least, not traditionally served at the table. But as I said earlier, the solution to protein may not indeed be plants, but something that actually uses far less resource. And Sky's going to talk to us a little bit about the children as well and how they might be quite useful to changing the way we think. Sky.
Definitely. So my name's Sky. I'm the founder of the Edible Bug Shop. I'm actually an entomologist and a food scientist, so I'm very qualified to talk about this subject. We've all had some really amazing experiences at Global Table over the past few days, and I'm sure we're all going to go away and talk about them a lot more. What we actually do is we take your previous food experiences, the emotions and the memories around those, and we harness those to create acceptance of new foods. So I just want to start off with a little bit of audience participation today. So have a look at these pictures that I'm going to show you. They're all amazing food pictures. Just give me like a little bit of a thumbs up, thumbs down. Like, would you eat it? Would you not eat it? Okay? So we've got some pancakes. What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Yep. You don't like pancakes? What's wrong with you? Burger? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Yep, burger. All right. Ice cream. Yes, that's a thumbs up from me. I could go some ice cream right now. Oh. Scorpion on a stick. Some people, right? Why not? What if I told you that all of the food pictures that you saw here today, all of the foods were actually made using insect-based ingredients? So your brain, from the pictures, your brain kind of already knows what to expect from those kinds of products. It knows the flavours, it kind of knows the textures, so it's really accepting of that. The protein pancakes that are made there are actually made using a cricket protein powder. The burger that's on there is made using a textured insect protein, and even the ice cream, it's made using a high protein cricket milk. So does that kind of change your mind about the pictures now? A little bit? No? So we actually create familiar food items that you guys would eat every day, but they just happen to be enriched with insect-based ingredients. Now, I really don't need to tell this audience about all the health and environmental benefits and nutritional benefits of insects because you guys have all got that down pat. But what has really been tricky for me is actually getting people to eat them. So it's actually been quite a long process. So how we've kind of formulated created our business is for the past 12 years, we've had this plan in place. So the first step in our plan is education. So educating consumers in as many ways as we can about the benefits of insects. The next step is we actually create familiar experiences using our unfamiliar ingredient, and it helps people kind of accept it a little bit. And the final stage is where we're up to now, is accessibility. So there's no point in building this amazing base of education and experience if people can't buy it. So here's part of our education piece. So obviously we're very, very hyper connected. So we utilise social media. Social media is really excellent at getting high quality information out there very quickly. But we like seeing real people too. So we do events like this. We did the Easter show. I'm flying off to do a food festival on the weekend. And that really helps us get real time responses from people and get people's real reactions. We also utilise the media quite a lot. They've got a fantastic fascination with edible insects, which is to my great benefit. And that really helps people learn about insects, even if they're not trying to. But one of the most important things that we do is our school education program. So we've actually been running that program for 11 years now, and we go into schools and we have an interactive experience with the children all about not just insects, but the future of food and what that really looks like. I was in the supermarket a little while ago, and this man came up to me when I had my children in the trolley and was like, "Excuse me, are you the bug lady?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am." "Who are you?" He then went on to explain that when he was at primary school, I went into his school and taught him and his friends all about the future of food, sustainability and edible insects. And now that he's all grown up and he has his own money, he chooses to include insects as part of his diet because he really believes in it. And Ellie fell on the floor and burst into tears. I was just so happy. It just really showed me that all the work that we were putting into education was really, really doing something. So last week, I actually got one of my staff to work out how many students we've seen in our school education programs. And next week, we would have seen 1 million children. So that's about 4% of our population. So those children, even though I talk about bugs all the time, I'm sure those children will go away. They have a better understanding of our food system and probably a better understanding of our food system than most adults do. So I think that's a big win for us. So those are my gorgeous children. I had a really interesting experience last week with my children about how kind of they experience food, because obviously their food experience is a little bit different to regular children. My 2 little boys only go to preschool, so they came up to me and asked if they could take some of our spicy cricket chips to school, because that's what they call them. I just put some in their lunchbox, not thinking, and then I was listening to this conversation that they were having. So between the 2 of them, they're really conspiring against their teachers, saying how they're going to get all the teachers to try the chips, and they're not going to tell them what's in it until later, and all this stuff, those little buggers. But when you listen to the conversation a little bit more carefully, they didn't actually think the crickets were the problem. They thought the chili was the problem. They were trying to get them to try the chili chips. So even though not all children have grown up eating insects as part of their diet, to my children, the chili was much more novel than the crickets, which I found really amazing. It's like a proud mum moment then. So another way that we get edible insects onto the mind of diners is by using restaurants and celebrity chefs. So chefs have these really amazing and creative brains. They really want you to have a unique and memorable experience with all the food ingredients that are on your plate. And most of all, they want you to go away and talk about your experience at their restaurant. So we work really, really closely with a lot of chefs, not just in Australia, but worldwide, to help introduce diners to edible insects in a way that's not typically how I would do it, because we're hiding it in foods to enrich the foods, but by having the insects like star right on top of the dish. Another thing that we do is we create familiar experiences that you would have done anyway, but we kind of twist it up a little bit. So have you guys got memories of going to the movies? Like when you've got like fresh popcorn in your nose, you really just need to have the popcorn, right? So what we actually do is we've developed an activity that we do for events where we have a fresh popcorn machine. You get to choose which kind of insect you would like to go inside, and the insects kind of have the same texture as the popcorn, so it works really, really well. And then you get to choose a topping to go on top. But the important part of that activity is as you're making your choices, our really experienced staff are delivering key messages for you to take away about what you're eating. And then you can go away and you share that experience with your friends. Imagine it's like a hot summer's day and you see a free ice cream cart, right? Who doesn't love free ice cream? I'm definitely a free ice cream eater. But what if the ice cream actually had a variety of different bugs on the top, like crickets or mealworms or ants? Would you still take it, right? No? We work with The Economist quite often because it's really a lesson in sustainable proteins, and The Economist ice cream carts go all around Australia, and they've got these key messages that we've helped them produce on the side of all of their ice cream cups. So all those messages are going out there, and you're much more willing to try the insects on the ice cream because you're familiar with what the ice cream should taste like, and the bugs are just a delicious bonus, really. And if you guys have been walking around the innovation area, you would have seen our edible insect vending machine. So everybody knows how to use a vending machine. You put your money in, you get some delicious snacks out. But what we do is we customise the products that go inside. So it's things you would normally find in a vending machine anyway, like chips and lollies and chocolates and protein bars and stuff, but they've just been enriched with insects in some way. So you're having a really familiar experience, and your brain recognises that it's just food because that's what you would normally get out of a vending machine. And the last part of our plan is the accessibility, obviously. So as of next week, you'll be able to purchase our Australian farmed cricket powder in Australian supermarkets Australia-wide. And that'll be under the Woolworths Macro brand. Macro is a very trusted brand, so we've partnered with them very specifically because you already go to Woolworths, you have a relationship built up with this brand that you might not have with our brand. So your previous positive experiences with that brand will help you move forward into choosing a new ingredient. We're also working with some takeaway food at the moment. So think about going into your favourite fast food restaurant and ordering your regular burger. But when you order your regular burger, you're actually given the choice. A choice to have a burger that's made from half beef protein and half insect protein. Now, it looks and tastes exactly the same as the burger that you would normally have, but it's higher in protein, lower in fat, and better for the environment. Having choices like that available at places that you would go anyway is really, really important. And food manufacturers are really banking on that as well. We're working with a lot of big food manufacturers to develop products, and these again are products that you would purchase every day that are just enriched using insects. The way that we're moving forward with food really needs to change so that we can help cope with the increase of our population. So I really feel that edible insects are a fantastic resource, and it's really, really underused. So think about the foods that you eat every day and kind of how you can include insects as part of your regular diet in a very non-scary way.
Sky, thanks very much. It's good to know that our future will include protein crawling or flying towards you anytime soon. But Sky brought up a point just at the end that's really important, and that's about diet. So some of the oxymoronic things in our food chain just at the moment, one of them includes something called food deserts. Now, that is not in third world countries. They appear particularly in a country called the United States of America, not particularly known for a lack of food. But food deserts are where we have people who don't have access to fresh food. Everything is convenience. and we have people who are malnourished and obese at the same time, which definitely sounds oxymoronic. Now, snacking is one of those things that can cause some of those problems, and the way we snack is important. In Australia today, we still, when the kids' sports days, we still give them snakes at sports days, which, although delicious, is perhaps not the right way to go. A couple of years ago, I got very excited by the concept of something called healthy hedonism. Now, I have to be honest, I'm not sure I did it entirely the right way, and I came up with what I called the pomegranate martini. So I sort of antioxidant and alcohol at the same time, perfect. I'm not sure that Connor Reynolds would quite agree with me that I've got this concept right, but I think he can give you a better idea of proper snacking.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name is Connor, and I am the founder and director of a company called Snackwise. So what we do is we deliver nutritionist-approved healthy snack boxes to offices, workplaces, and homes all around Australia. Now, my talk's going to be a little bit different, so I want you all to take a walk down memory lane with me and think back to meal times with your family, or perhaps maybe go back even further with this photo, back to your grandparents' days. How do you think they would differ now? Chances are they would have had a much stricter routine when it comes to eating than we do today. 70 years ago, it was quite typical of a family to eat at the exact same time every day. You'd have breakfast at 7 a.m, lunch at 12 p.m, and then dinner around 5 p.m. And back then, it was also quite common to be quite strict on what you ate on what day of the week as well. Back then, it was very common to have a roast on a Sunday, any cold leftover meat on a Monday, and if there's still any leftovers by then, it'd be chucked together to make some sort of dish to last you through till Thursday. And then if you were lucky, you might have got a treat of fish and chips on Friday night. Pretty much the weekly routine always stayed the exact same. While back then they didn't have much choice when it came to food, they always served up freshly prepared meals with vegetables. Fast forward to today. It's September the 5th, 2019. What have you eaten today? Did you even get a chance to have breakfast? Or did you rush out the door and grab a coffee instead? Did you sit down to an hour's long lunch break? Or did you snack at your desk because you had 1,000 other things to do? And tonight, what will you do for dinner? Will you prepare a freshly cooked meal with locally sourced meat and veggies? Or will you do this? And pull out your smartphone later on after this talk and decide later on and choose from one of their many healthy food delivery apps which can have your favourite cuisine delivered to you in as little as 30 minutes. There's no denying there's been a huge shift towards less structured meal times in the past 70 years or the last 30 years, if you want to go back that more recently. Changes in family structures, longer, more unpredictable working hours, busy lifestyles, international trade, advances in technology, internet, and more women entering the workforce have all driven this shift. So the idea of having meals that once took set times of the day are now dictated by our work demands and our busy lifestyles. Where we consume the majority of our meals has also changed as well. During the week, predominantly that is done at work. And it's not very hard to see why. If you consider, even though that the standard full-time working week in Australia is classified as 38 hours, we're putting in a lot more time than that at the office. And to quote some stats, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 68% of Australian full-time workers put in more than 40 hours a week. Of them, I think 30% put in 50, and then about 10% more than 70 hours. So we're working a hell of a lot longer in the actual workplace. So with this shift in, working longer at the office and eating more at the office, what employers expect to have access to when it comes to food in the workplace has also changed. Has also changed. Also too, with baby boomers now heading into retirement, a new generation is entering the workforce, and the psychographic and demographics of the workplace are changing. Millennials, which we alluded to at the start of the talk, which is my generation, born from 1980 to mid-1990s, are going to make up 75% of the global workforce in the next 6 years. That is a huge, huge shift, and that's according to Deloitte. This is a very health-conscious generation that who seek different needs and experiences compared to their older baby boomer colleagues. They're seeking a distinct type of workplace experience. They really want to have their healthy habit in their workplace, have their healthy habits integrated into the workday, rather than really being abandoned temporarily until they clock out. They really want to work for a workplace whose values match up to their own. Not only is this generation more health conscious than the baby boomers, but how and what and when they eat is also very different to the past generation. In fact, there's a bit of a boring chart here for you, but millennials will snack on average 3 to 4 times a day, and 8% of them will forego meals altogether in favour of snacking, including to that Hartman Group research there. That is absolutely completely different to those 3 structured meals we used to talk about with grandma and our parents years back. The reason why? Simply because of their busy work demands and their lifestyles. They just do not have the time to sit down to proper meals. And half of them consume their snacks in the workplace. So the problem with that is that they don't have access to these healthy snacks all the time. So really with this sort of, I guess, where we're going is you're probably starting to see in Australia as well. We look at Australia, 46% of Australians now are snacking in favour of lunch. That's just over 11 million of us. So you're probably starting to see a theme here. The lunch hour is becoming dead, if you like. I mean, gone are the days of workplaces providing meals on site at set hours of the day. Employees want to have access to food and drink on their own schedule. They may go to the gym in the morning and then have breakfast at work. They then may have a lunch at 11 a.m. one day and then, lunch at 2 p.m. the next day, which means convenience is king, not just in the healthy food that is actually available, but across the actual whole experience as well. I guess consumers are now becoming used to a new standard of service from consumer brands, which they're now sort of expecting to see in their workplace food experience. Whether the person is working in the office or working remotely, they want to have, healthy options or food that fits seamlessly into the day. And the convenience must come without sacrificing nutrition, taste, or quality. If we look to, the future of where we're heading, organisations across the world and businesses and companies, when I talk about organisations, are starting to understand and see this shift in the workplace, and they're putting in place customisable healthy food offerings, which are catering to these needs and creating a workplace food experience which allows their employees to deliver the best possible work. If you look to the USA, UK and Canada as an indicator of where we're going, unfortunately Australia is at least 7 years behind. The amount of times I've travelled around the world for work and see everything, and I look at workplaces, what they're doing there is a norm. I come back to Australia and travel around, and it's only always reserved for the tech guys of the space, which is just crazy, considering we have access to some of the best healthy food in the world in Australia, but our workplaces are just stuck in the 1990s. It's really quite bizarre. But from from smart vending machines to cashless micro markets, free snack stations, and the healthy cooking classes, these organisations across the world are really starting to, see the need for this and looking to their workplaces to be seen as healthy destinations, if you like, because it's these sort of types of environments that employees and this new generation, while they're very called really entitled, I would say they're just more health conscious, and they really want to have their workplace contribute to their workplace health and not really detract from it. So it's absolutely, a huge shift that is happening. So you can sort of see with all this happening, providing the good old tick and flick fruit box drop and a bit of coffee delivered once a week, it's not really catering to today's changing workplace, and it's definitely not going to cater to them in the future as well. So what it sort of... first of all, I'll ask you guys a question. Has anyone in the crowd here today heard of Sally and Bevy? You have? Okay, well that wrecks my next part of the speech. But basically what they are is they're not people, they are actually workplace food, recent food innovations in this space. And what Sally is right here in front of you is, she is the world's first salad-making robot. So basically, what this basically does is this machine holds up to 22 fresh ingredients, which allows staff or anywhere around the workplace to come up any time of day and create their own freshly prepared salads any time of the day, which is really catering to that healthy demand in the workplace and also eliminating the need for human labour too. Bevy is another, I guess, innovation in this space, one that I personally came across in my travels to the USA a couple of years back. What Bevy is, it's a smart water cooler, and basically what that really means is that it hooks up to an existing organisation's water just like a regular water cooler, but it allows the employee to provide, I guess, choose customisable pours of still sparkling or naturally flavoured water. So not only is it eliminating the need for plastic in the workplace and reducing landfill and better for the environment, but this thing is also connected to the internet by the company's Wi-Fi. So if any of the flavours or the CO2 needed to make the sparkling or anything like that run short, it'll automatically communicate to the Bevy technician, hey, the machine's running low on this, and it'll come out without the office manager or whoever's responsible for that machine to have to call up. And it's also providing that seamless food experience in the workplace so they can have access to healthy, clean water no matter what and not be really, I guess, interrupted. Now, I know these things can be quite seen as, quite out there innovations, and if you're a small to medium business in Australia, which is what make up the majority of its economy, you're thinking, God, that might seem a bit costly and a bit far-fetched. But I guess for small, you can sort of start to see where we're heading in the workplace food experience, and these innovations are very, very popular overseas, more so the Bevy. The salad-making robot one's quite recent, but Bevy's taking up storm, not just in America, but across the Northern Hemisphere. So I don't think it'll be too long before it's down here, or a company in Australia will start to look at doing the same. And I've personally had that, and it's really, really good stuff. I'm no way affiliated with them, but I just really think the product's really, really cool. But I think for small to medium businesses who are really looking at this and sort of thinking, okay, well, I've got this generation of people who want to eat healthier, what can I do on a budget? I mean, for people who don't have access to on-site cafes, kitchens, and huge budgets, you don't really have to spend a lot of money to make a big difference to your employees in the workplace. Bringing in outside food suppliers has been seen to be a very effective solution, and is one that's on the rise across Australia, and I guess very, very popular in the Northern Hemisphere too. So I guess companies like mine, which is Snackalize, which I started just under 4 years ago now, what we do is we're really catering to not only that snacking need, but also that access to healthy snacks any time of the day. And we do that by providing nutritionist-approved healthy snack boxes to workplace, offices and homes all around Australia at prices cheaper than retail. And what we're all about is providing a convenience delivery, if you like, for those workplaces who need it on demand. That's weekly, fortnightly or monthly. And it doesn't have to cost a bomb at all. I mean, that's the point of this, is that you actually are showing your staff that you care for their health and you're providing more than just ticking a box and being seen. We're really fortunate at Snackwise. We've got some fantastic customers who are industry leaders in Australia, which are doing a great job. But Australia needs to catch up. And it's not just about providing a snack box across anything. It's about really looking at how can I make my workplace a healthier place, because healthier employees are good for business. It's been talked about for years, but we've still got a long way to go. So it is on the rise, it's happening, but it's a little bit of a slow burning wheel here. I sort of will wrap it up now. I mean, I guess given that, we're going to spend more than 30% of our lives in work, it really makes sense for these organisations to invest in workplace food experiences that enable their people to live their best possible work. I mean, we're working way more than 8 hours a day in the office, and organisations now have a really unique opportunity to not only affect the health but cognitive performance, of their employees, which, contributes to the whole of the business as well. So, the free snacks, the healthy on-site meals, the health cooking classes aren't just going to be reserved for the big tech giants of this world. I mean, we look at them and say, they've got all this money, they can do it. You can do it for a fraction of the cost, and it's going to become the norm and expectation in the next 10 to 15 years. So the question you have to ask yourself, the organisation, is that you're going to be an industry leader, or are you going to be an industry lagger? Because the retention of your employees, and ultimately its bottom line, it's going to depend on it. Thank you very much.
Connor, thank you very much. I have to admit, I'm a little bit disappointed. Bevy doesn't seem to be dispensing my pomegranate martini, which is good. Well, for Australia, I think that might be useful. Perhaps doesn't fit the healthy model, but fits mine. But Connor's brought up some really interesting points about health, and a couple of thousand years ago someone said let food be thy medicine, and not just be thy medicine for physical health but also, as Matt mentioned, emotional health is just as important. And of course, Sky has scared you a bit about the true future of protein. So I imagine we might have some questions from the audience at all. Where's my... just waiting to see what the technology is telling us, if anything. We couldn't have a failure of technology. Sky, what about insect farms? People talk a lot about urban farms, and they talk about green buildings. Could we have buildings just for insects?
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And we actually convert unused warehouse spaces in city environments into insect farms right now because we use fruit and vegetable waste during their production. So we want to be close to where we can get the fruit and vegetable waste. There's no point in us producing insects far away. That's adding to our carbon footprint. We want them to be as sustainable as possible.
Well, I think it's interesting. I have a little bit of experience about transporting food great distances, and particularly in Australia, and we spend a lot of time moving food around from big distances. So the idea of actually growing where the people are is really very interesting. It says something too about there are other ways to make food cheaper and accessible. Connor, just something about health. There are groups of people who can be a little bit resistant to what is good for you. Have you faced any challenges on people who are saying, just give me chocolate, give it to me now?
Yeah, definitely. We always say each to their own. I mean, it's all about providing people the option to make that informed choice and to have it there. I think, the chocolate's fine. I mean, we all love a bit of chocolate here and then. The problem is it's when it's there in the workplace every single day, it's not going to be producing the best for your staff. I mean, what we try to do is to say, hey, if you do want to eat healthier, here we're an option to provide you that option at a convenient service there. So we're all about, I guess, providing a healthier option that's also meeting the demands of people's busy lifestyles. So, if people want to, keep going against the chocky, that's up to them. But there's a huge move now, especially in our generation, that we understand that eating chocky every day is probably not going to help us long term.
Sadly. Matt, and talking about food, not just as about making us feel better, but of course mentally, because it's true, isn't it? The studies they've done on children in schools, changing school dinners and so on. In America, I know they've done a lot of work on kids with ADD and the change in their behaviour and therefore their emotional state if their diet is better.
Yeah, Hilary, there's a lot of research out there about diet and how it's affecting. There's obviously the connection between our gut and our brain through the vagus nerve. But the biggest thing in schools we've found when we go speak to schools is if they're having the meals together, there's a lot less disruption in the class because we all remember back in school the cliques that form are quickly distilled when that lunch is a much more structured, sort of settled environment for the kids to eat together. So there is the obvious science of a good diet, but there's also the effects it's having on our kids just by eating with one another. Definitely.
It's really interesting.
I've got a couple of questions here on the app, but before we go to the app, is there any questions from the floor? Okay, perfect.
Hi, Patrick Watson. Matt, congratulations. I really enjoy the connection between community and food. I mean, I think that's what food is about, sharing. And we can equate that to the trends of snacking, which I think is a reflection on alienation from our culture and our society, that people have become less connected to the food chain and hence less connected to each other. And I can only compare that to France. So you look at the French model of work and living. You find at lunchtimes in France, everyone goes to lunch. They go to restaurants, they go to cafes, they sit together, they eat together. The same in the evenings, that people tend to gather together and eat and share the community. And you find this in the workplace particularly so, and it's also legislated. You find in the schools, the children are taught how to eat. They're taught to appreciate food and taught that the sharing of food is essential to build community. And I'd just like to hear your comments on that, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've written down to look into that French model. But I think organising to have meals together has become one of the hardest problems in today's society, with the more demands our bosses are putting on us with work, the more demands we're putting on ourselves to eat healthy, the more demands, we're just increasing them left, right and centre, and we've stopped prioritising that meal together. We're prioritising other things because society hasn't held enough value on it. Connor showed an awesome photo of potentially even our great-grandparents eating over the dinner table, and that was such a priority to it. And I remember when I was a kid that there was not a chance that my parents would let me have a phone at the dinner table, nor would we be sitting in front of the TV. And now you go into a family home, and mine's the same as well. I'm doing everything to turn it around, but TV is on, phones are out. So when we go out for dinner now, we've kind of adopted this by incident from the French perhaps. When we go out for dinner, whether it's with my friends or with my family, we have a policy that all phones get stacked on top of one another on the table. And if there is some reason that you do need to touch that outside of a life or death situation, you pay for the entire bill. And I think everyone should take that on.
Okay, any other questions? So we have one from the app. So let me go back to the app. So the question was around packaging. And Connor, great products, great lines, but are you doing anything to address packaging and waste?
Yeah, so I guess all our boxes and everything else that our snacks go into are fully 100% recyclable. In terms of the wrappers, we obviously don't actually make the actual snacks themselves. We're a retail of existing Australian, New Zealand brands. So most of those brands are very, environmentally friendly. But what we've done is that we've got they're called TerraCycle. They're a snack recycling bin that the office and workplace can have there, that for any snack wrappers can go on and be recyclable. So that's what we're addressing with waste, which technically means they can be a zero waste office if you like. But I guess with individual snacks, they're a lot more hygienic and convenient than dipping your hand into something such as a jar.
Okay. And Sky, one for you. What's the acceptance of insect-based products, and do you have a marketing prospecting?
So we've been doing this for 12 years, so we've seen a huge shift in consumer focus when it comes to food. So when we started doing this 12 years ago, if we were at an event like this, it'd be like, I have a force field around me. Nobody wants to come near me in case I'm going to throw bugs on them or something. But now we get invited to come to things like this. When we see people, they've got really intelligent questions and they're much more willing to try. And we're seeing that, especially with products going into supermarkets, there's a lot of marketing that's going behind that. We're doing some videos with celebrity chefs and to go into the Woolies magazine to actually teach people how to use it. So we feel like the market's really ready for people to include insects in their diet, and consumers want this.
Okay. And one more for Connor. They're peppering you at the moment, Connor. Looking at your Snackwise box on the work counter, how has large-scale workplace snack providers like Provender responded to your alternative options?
Provender? Never heard of them. Yeah, okay. It's a hard one because I don't know who they are. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know who they are. I mean, in terms of our space, how we're different to vending machines and so forth, I don't know if Provender are that or they're a pantry supplier. Our target is really small to medium business, so, our organisation 20 to about 150 staff who really don't need to have the big clunky vending machine there taking up space or actually providing the healthier options. With the Snackwise box and display stand, that's all provided for free. It's just easy access to access the snacks any time of the day. We've had a few people sort of, organisations take a look at us and trying to do what we're doing. But I guess sort of the key thing with our sort of brands is that we're very strict on the ingredients, and the snack brands we work with, they have to be free from artificial colours, flavours and preservatives. That's our non-negotiable. So there's not many companies in Australia or anyone, or even that many snack brands out there who actually really do that. There's some great ones we work with. It's on the rise, which is great, but in terms of getting really healthy food in the workplace, I'm biased. It's my company. I think we're leading the charge on this. It was an interesting space to see what happens the next 10 years. And
one more for both you and Sky. Are you going to team up and put some insects into your range?
I just said we need to put some of the chips into the snack box, the cricket chips.
Yeah, definitely. We've had cricket protein bars in our boxes before. I personally loved them. Some of the office workers were just freaked out by the idea of it, but I think it's a great protein. So yeah, I think we'll definitely do it. If not for our office, definitely for the home delivery for sure. Yeah.
So that's all from the app. Is there any more questions from the floor? No?
We're good.
Do you-
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming for the last session of Global Table 2019. We'll see you in 2020. And if you'd like to thank Matt, Connor and Sky for showing us the way to the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to the panel. Fantastic session. What a way to end.